Morning, everybody. Last week, my talk focused on two aspects of the Zen ox herding pictures, enlightenment and continuous practice, or what is referred to as the circle of the way. And, I think I made the remark last week that it's interesting that we hear and read so much about enlightenment, at least in reference to Zen, because in reality it's not something we actually talk too much about. It's not something we're seeking, it's not something we're trying to attain along this road that we walk together. But there are surely many references, obviously, to enlightenment, and in addition, a number of symbols of it that have been carried along down through history in Buddhism and Hinduism as well. And additionally, my talk last week included some discussion about the circle of the way, our continuous practice that never ends, from, just as a reminder, from that moment of our first aspiration to step onto this road, that first aspiration that brought us to the path and on to include our practice and our own enlightenment and even nirvana. So in Buddhism, we have a lot of references to circles. Recently for us, you'll recall the ox herd, stage number 8. If you can show us that, Kate, very quickly. This circle, and this picture rather, was called Transcending the Ox. So transcending the ox and the person or the ego, the self and other, the body and mind, have just all fallen away. No longer searching for enlightenment, no longer continuing our delusions. And we might say that this represents our full realization of emptiness, nothing to attach to. This circle, called an Enso in Japanese, is really well known and very commonly seen in zendos and practice halls and hanging on walls at home, near home altars. And it's actually said to have originated in India, being a representation of the full moon, which in Buddhism is a symbol of enlightenment. And it was used, the Enso was used in much the same way as all of the ox herd pictures. It was originally used by masters for teaching purposes and to symbolize the complete experience of enlightenment. In fact, Dogen used it as a teaching device as well, and many other masters throughout history. Thank you, Kate. So Enso, E-N-S-O, is a Japanese word meaning circular form, and it's often translated in English into Zen circle. And it's probably the main and maybe the most well-known symbol of Buddhist enlightenment. And from the very beginning of Buddhist tradition, enlightenment was compared to the bright full moon, or also to a great round mirror. And a number of our ancestor Buddhist masters were often said to appear as a luminous circle which revealed true Buddha nature. According to John Stevens, he has a small book with pictures, many different pictures of Ensos. Bodhidharma, the grand patriarch of Zen, was called the great teacher of circle enlightenment. And it's been recorded that Huineng, our sixth patriarch, actually used at least 96 types of circles in his teachings with his students. In early Zen texts, the way of Buddha is described as a circle like vast space, lacking nothing, nothing in excess. In short, an Enso defines the Zen state of mind. Enso can be created, in many different ways. We can simply write it in the air. We can draw it in the dirt. But obviously, most commonly, it's brushed on paper with ink. And according to Kazuaki Tanahashi, whom I'll speak more about in a few minutes, the oldest painting in the Japanese tradition dates to the 14th century, to a 14th century Japanese monk and painter. So they've been around for a while. And likely it too was created for a student who needed something concrete to contemplate, some visual that he could work with, he or she. A visual expression of enlightenment. The earliest one, however, is by a Chinese Zen master, Kyozan. This is from the 9th century. And in fact, Enso paintings actually became the primary teaching technique in East Asian Buddhism, especially in Japan. And it's said that every Zen master since the 17th century has produced these paintings and used them as aids for their students. And Kate, can you show us just a few Ensos? So each Zen master through time had his or her own style, and that style, their personality, their individuality was always clearly expressed in the Ensos that they brushed. Some Zen circles are symmetrical, others are completely lopsided. Some are done in one bold stroke. Others are done in 2 half circles. Some are thick and massive, and others are thin and delicate. Normally, most begin in the left-hand corner, but others start at the top or the bottom. And although not always, Enso are often accompanied by an inscription, which serves as a kind of hint as to the Zen meaning of the circle. One very common one is Shakyamuni's declaration at his birth, which was, "In heaven and on earth I am the only honored one." You might see that written there. And Enso can also represent 0, or this notion of nothing, emptiness, void. So the inscription "Mu" for void might appear. A famous verse from a Chinese poet, "My heart is like the autumn moon," indicates that the Enso symbolizes the moon mind of enlightenment. It often represents a wheel, the coming and going, the revolving circle of human passions, for example. And certain inscriptions can serve just as a koan, something that students and masters alike contemplate. For example, the well-known, "This is your parents' face before they were born." Thank you, Kate. And because humor is often used in Zen, sometimes we might see an inscription such as, "Is this the moon? A rice cake? The top of a bucket? Or maybe just the bald head of a monk?" The most common inscription, however, on Enso paintings is simply, "What is this?" leaving the interpretation up to the viewer. So the Enso symbolizes many things: enlightenment, strength, elegance, the universe, emptiness. And in Zen, we may see it as either an open or a closed circle. An incomplete circle suggests the quality of movement and development and the imperfection of all things. We could say it represents the beauty of imperfection. The closed circle then might represent perfection, absolute enlightenment. So we may look upon the Enso as a reminder of our continuous path, in which we embrace all our imperfections, all of our problems, and the perfection of wisdom. The perfection of wisdom being fully present in our lives. So we may see them open or closed, in black ink or in different colors, with poems, words, or pictures added in or not. The Enso is a reflection of the person who creates it. It's an organic experience which reflects the Creator's mind and body and heart. And therefore, each Enso is very different. There's no mind of perfection in creating an Enso. It's an extension of the painter. It is a spiritual practice that you could even do every day. And it's simple from the point of view that it's created with the tools and, let's say, the body mechanics of traditional Japanese calligraphy. You have a brush, and you have some ink, and you have paper, traditionally rice paper. And it's drawn usually in one fluid, expressive stroke. Although some have been created with 2 strokes, one on each side. And this is usually done quite quickly. And once it's completed, it is not changed in any way. We don't touch it again. It is a perfect expression of imperfection, characterizing its creator and the context of its creation in the moment. Here in the Zendo, Mary Ellen McNeil, Myogo Mary Ellen McNeil, our founder and our guiding teacher, chose to hang a beautiful Enso on the wall just directly behind the Doan to my right here, behind our bell striker. And Kate, can you show us the Zendo Enso? Thank you. So this is the Enso that hangs in our Zendo. And I think for most of the time that for all the time probably that we've been here in this building. And this Enso was painted by Kaz Tanahashi. And some of you may know of him. Maybe you've attended one of his calligraphy classes at Yopaya Zen Center, or you've listened to one of his Dharma talks. He's now, as of last fall, he turned 90 years old. And he's an accomplished Japanese calligrapher, teacher, author, and translator of Buddhist texts. Actually in Japanese and Chinese, translated into English. Notably, he's a translator of Dogen, having started his own translation of Dogen's seminal work, the Shobogenzo, when he was in his 20s. And we're so happy to have this Enso, this moment in time from the mind, body, and heart of Kaz. And the inscription, there's an inscription to the left, and this was done in 2000. He painted this, brushed it in 2005, I think. Is that right, or is it 2005? 2005. And the inscription is?
Miracles of each moment.
Yeah, miracles in each moment. Miracles of each moment. Awakening in each moment. So this Zen circle, this Enso, can represent many things. It represents, as we've said, enlightenment. It represents the universe. It represents perfection and imperfection. Infinity, emptiness, the mind, the moon, enlightenment, or even a tea bowl or a sweet cake. And there's a very famous story told about Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, the founder of San Francisco Zen Center, And a few days before he died, thank you, Kate. A few days before he died, he was lying in his bed, and his successor, Richard Baker Roshi, entered the room and was beside him. And at some point, although it was really difficult for Suzuki Roshi to talk, or to move for that matter, Baker Roshi asked his teacher, "Where do we meet?" And you know, people can have so many responses to that, right? Maybe people might think, oh, well, we meet in the afterlife, life after death. Or maybe for you it's heaven, or paradise. Maybe it's emptiness. Many choices, I think. But after hearing the question, Suzuki Roshi's small hand came out from underneath the covers, and he made a very small bow, and then he did this. He drew a circle in the air. Kaz Tanahashi has told this story many times in talks, and he says he has heard so many different ways to answer the question. But the one he found the best so far, he says, was a female student who raised her hand and said, "I think it means, see you around." So Enso are not perfect, and you know, they shouldn't be. Each is different, and each reflects simply being fully present of mind, body, and heart. And this is also what we too may feel when we look at an Enso. This simple presence that contains everything from the universe to a tea cake.